The vast emptiness of space stretched before the U.S. Dauntless as it cruised along the outer edges of known human territory. This was the farthest any human vessel had traveled from Earth, and Captain Frank Miller felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. 20 years in the Space Force had prepared him for many things, but being the first human to venture this deep into the unknown was something else entirely. "Status report," Captain Miller said, his voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Wright, his executive officer, stood at attention beside the captain's chair. "All systems normal, sir. We've just passed the Arcturus checkpoint. We are officially in uncharted space." The bridge hummed with quiet activity. Crew members monitored their stations with practiced efficiency. This was what they had trained for, to represent humanity among the stars. "Captain, I'm detecting something unusual," said Chief Science Officer Alice Gray. Her fingers moved quickly across her console as she analyzed the readings. "There's an object approaching from Sector 7. It's not matching any known signatures in our database." Miller leaned forward. "Put it on screen." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a distant object. It was sleek, with curves unlike any human design. Its surface seemed to shimmer slightly, reflecting starlight in patterns that somehow felt wrong to human eyes. "Is it natural or constructed?" Miller asked. "Definitely constructed, sir," Gray responded. "The symmetry and propulsion signatures suggest advanced technology, far more advanced than ours." A hush fell over the bridge. Every person present understood what this meant. They were not alone. "How long until it reaches us?" Miller asked. "At current speed, approximately 43 minutes, answered Lieutenant Ben Cooper from the communications station. Miller nodded and pressed a button on his chair. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. We have detected what appears to be an alien vessel approaching our position. This is not a drill. All departments prepare for first contact protocols. Security teams on standby. Let's make history the right way." Throughout the massive warship, the crew reacted with practiced discipline. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Olivia Diaz ordered her team to prepare for emergency maneuvers if needed. In the medical bay, Dr. Karen Mitchell readied her staff for possible first contact scenarios. Security Chief Jason Howard distributed weapons to his teams, with strict orders that they were for defense only. Back on the bridge, Miller turned to his XO. "Lisa, your thoughts?" Wright studied the approaching vessel. "They must have detected us first. They're coming straight for us, not just crossing our path. I suggest we maintain our current course, but ready all defensive systems without activating them. Show strength, but not aggression." Miller nodded in agreement. "Cooper, prepare a standard greeting message on all frequencies and in all formats. Gray, continue scanning that ship. I want to know everything about them before they get here." On the alien vessel, High Observer Xelak watched the unusual ship with 6 of his eyes, while his other 2 manipulated the scanning controls. The Galactic Concord had discovered many new species over its 10,000 years of existence, but something about this vessel seemed different. "Begin standard biological and technological assessment," Xelak ordered his crew. "This appears to be a new species. The Concord will want a full report." The scout ship's sensors reached out invisible beams of energy and data collection protocols, designed to learn everything about the new vessel. The scan passed through the outer hull of the Dauntless like it wasn't there. Cooper noticed it first. "Captain, I'm detecting some kind of energy field passing through our ship. It doesn't match any known scanning technology." "Can you block it?" Miller asked. "Negative, sir. It's using principles I don't understand." Miller straightened in his chair. "Let them look. We have nothing to hide." He didn't know how wrong he was. The aliens were about to see humanity in ways no outsider ever had, and what they would discover would change the galaxy forever. The alien scan moved through the U.S. Dauntless like an invisible wave. It passed through metal, plastic, and flesh with equal ease. On the Concord scout ship, data began to pour in. "This is most unusual," said Xelak, studying the first results. Their ship hull contains metals we recognize, but the alloy composition is designed to withstand extreme stress. His second-in-command, Terzi, moved closer to the display. Perhaps they come from a high-gravity world. Zelek made a gesture of agreement with his upper limbs. Continue the deep scan. I want to know everything about these beings before we make contact. Aboard the Dauntless, Lieutenant Ben Cooper worked at his communications station. Captain, I'm trying to establish contact with the alien vessel, but they're not responding to any of our hails. Captain Miller nodded. Keep trying different frequencies and formats. They might communicate in ways we don't understand. Sir, called Chief Engineer Olivia Diaz over the ship's comm system. We're experiencing strange power fluctuations throughout the ship. Whatever scan they're using is interacting with our systems. Miller frowned. Is there any danger to the ship? Not yet, sir, but the scan is becoming more invasive. It's accessing deeper systems with each passing minute. In the security center, Chief Jason Howard watched his monitors with growing concern. All security teams maintain positions but stay alert. We don't know what these aliens want. He turned to his assistant. I don't like this. They're looking at us, but not talking to us. Back on the bridge, Science Officer Alice Gray studied her readings with growing fascination. Captain, this scan is unlike anything in our records. It's gathering information about our biology, technology, even accessing our computer systems simultaneously. Can they access classified information? Miller asked. I believe so, sir. Our firewalls don't seem to slow them down at all. Miller considered this news. Let's not jump to conclusions. This may be their standard procedure for first contact. He turned to his XO. Lisa, what's your assessment? Lieutenant Commander Wright stood with her hands clasped behind her back. They're being thorough, sir. I'd do the same in their position. Learn everything before revealing yourself. On the alien vessel, the data continued to flow. Zelek and his crew began to sort through the information about these strange new beings called humans. Their biological readings are most concerning, said the Concord medical officer, Newly. These creatures have evolved in conditions that would kill most Concord species. Their planet has nearly crushed them with gravity, bathed them in radiation, and subjected them to extreme temperature variations. And yet they survived, Zelek said quietly. More than survived, Newly corrected. They thrived. Their bodies are remarkably resilient. Dense muscle tissue, a skeleton that continuously repairs itself, and redundant systems for critical functions. Terzi brought up new data. Their ship contains weapons. Primitive by our standards, but numerous. Why would an exploration vessel need so many weapons? Zelek felt his skin change color with concern. Perhaps they do not distinguish between exploration and military vessels as we do. Continue the scan. Focus on their weapons systems and historical records. I want to know what kind of beings we are dealing with. Back on the Dauntless, Dr. Karen Mitchell noticed something strange in the medical bay. Captain, the alien scan is accessing our medical records and biological data. It's examining our DNA sequences and physiological readings in great detail. Is there any harm to the crew? Miller asked over the comm. No, sir, but they seem particularly interested in our adrenal systems and pain responses. Captain Miller made his decision. All stations, activate defensive measures but do not deploy weapons. I want shields ready but not raised. Let's not appear hostile, but be prepared for anything. Throughout the massive ship, systems hummed to life, ready to protect the vessel if needed. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for whatever might come next. On the Concorde ship, Zelek's crew continued their work, unaware that what they would discover next would change how the entire Galactic Concorde viewed the universe. Alarm rippled through the Concorde scout ship as new data from the human vessel poured in. Zelek stared at the readings, all six of his eyes widening with each new revelation. This cannot be correct, he said. Run the biological scans again. Newly, the medical officer, rechecked the data. The scans are accurate, observer. These humans evolved on a world with gravity 1.3 times the Concorde standard. Their planet experiences extreme weather patterns from freezing to scorching temperatures, and the radiation levels from their sun would cause genetic damage to most Concorde species. And yet they live, Terzi added. Not just survive, but build spaceships and leave their death world behind. On the Dauntless, Dr. Karen Mitchell noticed unusual readings on her medical monitors. Captain, the alien scan is focusing on our medical records now. They seem particularly interested in our physical resilience data. What exactly are they looking at? Captain Miller asked. Everything. Bone density tests, muscle recovery rates, our ability to heal from injuries, even our pain tolerance studies from the Space Adaptation Program. In the Security Center, Chief Howard watched his team with pride. Despite the unknown situation, every member remained calm and ready. He contacted the bridge. Captain, my team reports the scan is intensifying in weapons storage and the combat training facilities. Miller nodded to himself. Understood. Maintain alert status. On the alien vessel, Salek assembled his senior officers as the data continued to arrive. Show me their psychological profiles, he ordered. The information appeared on the main screen. The aliens watched in stunned silence. These readings suggest humans can endure stress levels that would cause brain damage in Eulari species, said Pren, the psychology specialist. They appear to function even when experiencing extreme fear, pain, or fatigue. More concerning, Pren continued, they seem capable of something our translators struggle to define. The closest term is determination despite certainty of failure. They continue fighting even when defeat is mathematically certain. Tilak felt a cold sensation spread through his body. Are you suggesting they do not understand when they are beaten? They understand, Pren clarified. They simply refuse to accept it. Back on the Dauntless, Lieutenant Commander Wright approached Captain Miller. Sir, based on the scan patterns, I believe they're creating a threat assessment of our ship and crew. Miller considered this. That's standard procedure for us too. Let's not jump to conclusions about their intentions. In the engineering section, Olivia Diaz noticed the scan concentrating on the ship's power distribution systems. They're mapping our entire power grid, she told her team. They'll know exactly what we're capable of. The scan progressed deeper, now accessing the weapons control systems. The aliens watched with growing concern as the data revealed the true nature of the human warship. They carry projectile weapons, Terzi reported with disbelief. Actual physical projectiles alongside energy weapons. The kinetic force alone would tear through most Concorde vessel hulls. Why maintain such primitive technology alongside more advanced systems? Asked another officer. Redundancy, Zalek realized. If one system fails, they have completely different backup systems that cannot be affected by the same countermeasures. The mood on the alien ship darkened as they continued analyzing the human vessel. Observer called newly urgently. The medical data shows these humans require regular periods of unconsciousness, but during these periods, they experience neural simulations. Dreams, Zelek read from the translation. Even at rest, their minds continue functioning, processing information and preparing for threats. Pren added quietly, many of these dreams involve conflict scenarios. They practice war even in their sleep. On the Dauntless, Science Officer Gray noticed a change in the scan pattern. Captain, the alien scan is becoming more focused. They're concentrating on specific systems now, especially our defensive capabilities and historical archives. Miller's expression remained neutral, but inwardly he felt concern growing. They're learning everything about us. Let's hope they like what they see. Little did he know that across the void of space, the aliens were becoming more terrified with each passing moment. The alien scan reached the historical archives of the U.S. Dauntless. Data flowed into the Concorde scout ship's computers, translating and organizing human history for the alien observers. What they saw left them speechless. "These records cannot be accurate," Terzi said, his voice trembling slightly. "No species could survive such continuous conflict." Zelak watched the images scroll across the screen. Battles from ancient times with metal weapons and shields. Wars with primitive projectile weapons that tore flesh apart. Massive conflicts that spanned their entire planet. Weapons that grew more destructive with each passing century. "They have been at war with themselves throughout their entire recorded history," Prin observed. "Yet they survived." "More than survived," Zelak corrected. "They used each conflict to improve their technology. Their weapons advanced faster than their medicine, their art, even their ability to produce food." On the Dauntless, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez noticed unusual activity in the historical archive systems. "Captain, something is accessing our historical records. Military history, primarily. Can you tell what specific information they're looking at?" Captain Miller asked. Rodriguez studied his console. World War IA records, Cold War nuclear development, modern warfare tactics. "They're going through it all, sir." Miller frowned. "They'll get the wrong idea about us." In the alien vessel, the images continued to flood their screens. Humans fighting in every environment imaginable. Freezing mountains, scorching deserts, dense jungles, and open seas. The aliens watched with growing horror as they realized these fragile-looking beings could adapt to fight effectively in conditions that would kill most Concord species. "They call it fighting spirit," Terzi said, reviewing the translated text. "It has no direct equivalent in any Concord language." "Try to explain," Zelak requested. "It appears to be a quality they value highly. The ability to continue fighting despite injury, exhaustion, or certain defeat. They consider it a virtue." Newly added, their bodies produce chemicals during combat that increase strength and reduce pain. They evolve to become more effective when injured. Back on the Dauntless, ship's counselor Diane Fletcher sat up straight at her station. "Captain, the scan is accessing our psychological evaluation programs." "What kind of information would they get from that?" Miller asked. "Our stress test results, crisis response protocols, combat trauma management techniques. They'll see how we train our minds to handle extreme situations." Miller nodded slowly. "They're being thorough. I just hope they're not misinterpreting what they find." In the security center, Chief Howard watched his screens with growing concern. "The scan is focusing on our weapons capabilities now. It's deeper than before." On the alien ship, Zelak gave new orders. "Focus the scan on their weapons systems. I want to know their full combat capabilities." The data shifted, bringing new information about the human warship's offensive systems. The aliens' alarm grew with each new discovery. "They have nuclear weapons," Terzi reported, his skin changing to a pale blue color of extreme distress, "stored in a stable form on their own ship." "Is that not dangerous for them?" asked the junior officer. "Extremely," Newly confirmed. "But the records show they have been handling such weapons for centuries. They live alongside technologies that could kill them instantly." Zelak's eyes narrowed. "These humans are more dangerous than we initially thought. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them, spent their history fighting each other, and now they've brought their weapons to the stars." On the Dauntless, Engineer Diaz contacted the bridge. "Captain, the scan is attempting to access our missile guidance systems and nuclear ordnance protocols." Miller straightened in his chair. "Block those systems immediately. That's classified information even among our own people." Tactical Officer Greg Phillips joined in. "Sir, the scan intensity has doubled. Should I raise shields?" "Not yet," Miller ordered. "But be ready. Whatever they're looking for, they're getting more aggressive about finding it." As the human crew prepared for a possible confrontation, they remained unaware of the terror spreading through the alien vessel as it discovered just what kind of species had entered their corner of the galaxy. The mood on the Concorde scout ship had changed from scientific curiosity to growing alarm. Zelak watched as the weapons data from the human vessel poured in, each new revelation more disturbing than the last. "They have weaponized everything," Terzi said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Their propulsion systems can be used as weapons. Their mining tools can be used as weapons. Even their medical technology has military applications. Show me their primary offensive systems," Zelak ordered. The main screen filled with schematics of the Dauntless's weapons arrays, missile launchers with nuclear warheads, energy cannons that could tear through standard Concorde shielding, and most concerning of all, kinetic weapons that fired solid metal at speeds that defied the aliens' understanding of practical weapons technology. "These rail guns," Newly said, reading from the human technical specifications. "They fire physical projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic impact alone would devastate any vessel in our fleet." On the Dauntless, Tactical Officer Greg Phillips noticed the focused scan of the weapon systems. Without waiting for authorization, he activated the ship's defensive shields. "Shields up, Captain," he reported. The scan was penetrating too deeply into weapons control. Captain Miller frowned but nodded. "Understood. Better safe than sorry." "Sir," Engineer Diaz called from engineering. "The scan is attempting to access missile guidance systems and nuclear ordnance protocols. I've implemented emergency firewalls, but their scan technology is incredibly sophisticated." In the alien vessel, new information appeared on their screens. "They've raised defensive barriers," Terzi reported. "They're blocking our deeper scans." "Have we provoked them?" asked the junior officer. "Unclear," Zelak replied. "Continue passive scanning of accessible systems. Do not attempt to breach their new security measures." A new officer approached Zelak with a datapad. "Observer, we've completed analysis of their weapons technology development timeline. You need to see this immediately." Zelak reviewed the information, his skin darkening with concern. "They developed nuclear weapons barely a century after discovering basic electricity. They went from primitive flight to space travel in less than 70 years. The implications are disturbing," Pren added. "They adapt technology for warfare at a rate that exceeds any known species in Concorde records." Aboard the Dauntless, Security Chief Howard led teams through the ship to secure sensitive areas. "All sections, report status," he ordered through his comm unit. "Engineering secured. Weapons control secured. Bridge access restricted to authorized personnel only." Howard nodded with satisfaction. "Captain, all sensitive areas are now under additional security protocols." Miller acknowledged from the bridge. "Good work, Chief. Let's not take any chances." Back on the alien vessel, Zelak and his officers had made a shocking discovery. "They've weaponized physics itself," Terzi said in disbelief. "These theoretical weapons in their research databases violate principles the Concorde deemed too dangerous to pursue centuries ago." Observer, Newly interrupted. "The humans have technology that could theoretically tear holes in space-time fabric. They call them dimensional disruptors. They're still experimental, but the science appears sound." "A species this young should not have such weapons," Zelak said quietly. "They've barely left their home system." On the Dauntless, Science Officer Gray monitored the alien ship closely. "Captain, I'm detecting changes in their energy signatures. They appear to be powering up additional systems." "Weapons?" Miller asked sharply. "Unclear, sir, but their power output has increased by 30%. Lieutenant Commander Wright stepped closer to Miller. "Sir, I recommend we prepare for possible hostile action. They've learned a lot about us, and it might have frightened them." Miller considered this. "All stations, prepare for possible evasive maneuvers. Weapons on standby, but do not target. I want to be ready for anything, but we will not fire first." Throughout the massive warship, crew members moved with calm efficiency, preparing for a potential confrontation. The training scenarios they had practiced countless times now became reality as they readied themselves for whatever might come next. The aliens watched this activity with growing horror. What terrified them most wasn't just the weapons the humans possessed, but how casually they lived alongside such destructive power. Captain Miller called his senior staff to the bridge for an emergency meeting. As they gathered around the command center, the tension was clear on every face. "Report status," Miller ordered, looking at each officer in turn. "The alien scan continues but can't access our secured systems," said Engineer Dias. "They're being persistent but not aggressive." Lieutenant Cooper spoke next. "Sir, I've been trying to decode their communications. They're transmitting large data packets, likely about us. Their language is complex, but I'm detecting emotional markers indicating high stress and alarm." "They're afraid of us," Lieutenant Commander Wright said simply. Miller nodded. "The question is why? We haven't made any threatening moves." Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. "Captain, I've reviewed what they accessed in our medical database. They focused heavily on our physical resilience, our ability to survive injury, radiation, and extreme environments. Things we take for granted might seem extraordinary to them." Security Chief Howard frowned. "Or threatening. They now know we can fight in conditions that might incapacitate them." Science Officer Gray added, "The historical data they accessed focused almost exclusively on warfare. They've seen the worst of humanity without the context of our achievements in art, cooperation, or peace." On the alien vessel, Selak and his officers were engaged in an urgent discussion of their own. "We must report to the Concorde immediately," Terzi insisted. "These humans represent a potential threat unlike any we've encountered." "They haven't acted aggressively," countered another officer. "Perhaps we're overreacting." Selak made a gesture that silenced the debate. "Look at how they've responded to our scan. Their crew moves with practiced precision. No panic, no chaos. Every human aboard that vessel knows exactly what to do in a crisis situation. That level of discipline is rare even among Concorde military vessels," Pren observed. "Because most Concorde species haven't faced continuous threats throughout their evolution," Zelek replied. "These humans expect danger. They prepare for it constantly." Back on the Dauntless, Miller considered the situation carefully. "Cooper, keep working on translating their communications. I want to know what they're saying about us." "Yes, sir." "Gray, what's your assessment of their intentions?" The science officer studied her readings. "Their scan is methodical but not designed to harm our systems. I believe this is their standard first contact protocol. But based on their power fluctuations, I think we've surprised or alarmed them." Miller turned to the ship's counselor. "Fletcher, you've been quiet. Thoughts?" Counselor Diane Fletcher had been listening carefully. "From a psychological perspective, their scanning pattern suggests they're conducting a threat assessment. The focus on our weapons, our physical capabilities, and our history of conflict indicates they're trying to determine if we're dangerous." "Are we?" Miller asked with the hint of a smile. "By their standards, possibly," Fletcher replied. "Without knowing their evolutionary history, it's hard to say. But if they evolved in safer conditions than Earth, our entire existence might seem terrifying to them." In the alien ship, Newly brought new information to Xilak. "Observer, we've analyzed their psychological assessment programs. These humans regularly subject themselves to simulated crisis scenarios. They call it training." "For what purpose?" Xilak asked. "To improve their response to emergency situations. They deliberately expose themselves to stress to build resistance to it. They practice for disasters and combat regularly." Terzi added, "Their ship's counselor has advanced training in crisis psychology. She helps the crew maintain mental stability during extended missions and combat situations. A species that expects to face combat even during exploration," Tilak said softly. "They're always ready for war." On the Dauntless, Engineer Dias contacted the bridge. "Captain, I think I've developed a method to selectively block their scans without appearing hostile. We can allow them access to non-classified systems while protecting sensitive areas." "Implement immediately," Miller ordered. As the human crew continued working with calm efficiency, the aliens watched in growing unease. The humans' lack of panic, Their coordinated responses and their obvious familiarity with crisis situations only confirmed the aliens' fears. These humans were warriors to their core, and they had just entered Concord space. A new level of tension filled both ships as the alien scan attempted to breach the Dauntless's most classified systems. The humans could feel the invisible probes pushing against their digital defenses, seeking ways into the ship's most sensitive areas. They're trying to access the FTL drive specifications, Engineer Diaz reported from engineering. And they're probing our core defensive systems. Captain Miller's expression hardened. That crosses the line. Implement the countermeasure now. Yes, sir, Diaz replied. Her fingers flew across the console as she initiated the program she had prepared. Throughout the massive ship, power systems surged in a carefully controlled pattern, creating an electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the alien scan without damaging either vessel. On the Concorde ship, alarms sounded as their scanning equipment temporarily overloaded. What happened? Selak demanded. The humans generated some kind of energy wave, Terzi reported. It disabled our deep scanning capabilities without harming our ship. It was precisely calibrated. A warning, Selak realized. They could have caused damage, but chose not to. The aliens watched with growing concern as the human ship systems began to shift. Throughout the Dauntless, emergency protocols activated. Crew members moved with practiced precision to their battle stations, not in panic, but with the calm efficiency of people who had rehearsed these actions countless times. Observer called a junior officer. They're activating emergency systems, but there's no signs of distress. This appears to be standard procedure for them. They prepare for battle the way we prepare for routine maintenance, Newly noted, with practiced ease. Back on the Dauntless, Science Officer Gray made a troubling discovery. Captain, I'm detecting unusual readings from the alien vessel. They appear to be preparing to transmit a long-range signal. They're calling for backup, Lieutenant Commander Wright concluded. Miller considered this information carefully. They're frightened enough to report us to their superiors before making contact. That's not a good sign. Cooper looked up from his communication station. Sir, I've partially decoded their recent transmissions. They're describing us as a significant potential threat. They seem particularly concerned about our weapons capabilities. Security Chief Howard spoke up. Captain, they've seen our weapons, but they haven't seen them in action. Maybe a demonstration would help them understand our capabilities without threatening them directly. Miller thought for a moment, then nodded. A controlled demonstration. Target an empty region of space, far from their vessel, but within their sensor range. Tactical, prepare a limited test of our defensive capabilities. Aye, sir, responded Tactical Officer Phillips. He programmed the coordinates carefully, selecting an empty area of space approximately 50,000 kilometers from both vessels. On the bridge display, Miller reviewed the planned demonstration. A single rail gun projectile followed by a low-yield energy pulse, enough to show precision and power without appearing threatening. Ready, sir, Phillips confirmed. Execute, Miller ordered. The Dauntless rumbled slightly as the rail gun fired. A hypersonic projectile streaked away from the ship, followed seconds later by a precisely aimed energy beam. Both hit the exact same point in empty space, creating a brief but spectacular flash of light and energy. In the Concorde vessel, the aliens watched in horror as their sensors registered the weapon impact. The kinetic projectile exceeded our theoretical models for weapon velocity, Terzi reported, his voice shaking. And the energy beam that followed was precisely calibrated to detonate the projectile's core. The timing was accurate to within microseconds. How advanced is their targeting technology? Selak asked. Beyond anything in our combat databases, replied another officer. They hit the exact same point in space with two different weapon systems. The precision is terrifying. Pren spoke quietly. Observer, we must consider the possibility that these humans possess military technology beyond Concorde capabilities, despite being centuries younger as a spacefaring species. Selak made his decision. Prepare for immediate departure. We must report to Concord leadership about this new species. They need to know what we've discovered here today. As the alien vessel began powering its engines, the humans watched, still unaware of just how deeply they had shaken the Galactic Concord's understanding of the universe. The alien vessel suddenly changed position, its engines flaring as it began to move away from the Dauntless at high speed. "They're retreating, Captain," Science Officer Gray reported, watching her sensors, moving to a safe distance before making a faster-than-light jump based on their energy signatures. "Are they running from us?" Lieutenant Commander Wright asked. "It appears so," Cooper confirmed from communications. "Their transmission shows signs of urgency." Captain Miller made a quick decision. Plot an intercept course, not to engage, but to establish communication range. We came here to make contact, and I don't want them leaving with the wrong impression. "Course plotted, sir," the helm officer responded. "Execute. Keep weapon systems inactive. I want them to see we're not pursuing with hostile intent." The massive human warship surged forward, its engines pushing it toward the retreating alien vessel. Despite its size, the Dauntless moved with surprising speed and grace. On the Concorde ship, alarms sounded again. "The human vessel is pursuing us," Terzi reported, panic evident in his voice. "Maximum speed," Zalek ordered. "Prepare for emergency jump." Observer, Newly said, studying her console, "Their weapon systems remain inactive. They appear to be matching our course rather than setting up an attack vector." Zalek hesitated. "Hold position. Let's see what they do." Back on the Dauntless, Cooper worked frantically at his station. "Captain, I've almost completed a basic translation matrix based on their communications. I believe I can send them a simple message they might understand." "Do it," Miller ordered. "Keep it brief and non-threatening. Let them know we want peaceful contact." Cooper sent the carefully crafted message, a simple greeting in what he hoped was a format they could understand. In the Concorde vessel, a new alert sounded. "They're transmitting to us," an officer reported. "It appears to be a greeting. They're requesting peaceful communication." Zalek studied the message carefully. "After everything they've shown us of their military capabilities, now they want peace." "Perhaps that is their way," Pren suggested. "Show strength first, then negotiate from a position of power." "Or perhaps," Terzi added, "they simply wanted us to understand what they are capable of before we decide whether they are friend or foe." Zalek considered this, send a brief acknowledgement of their message, then resume our course to Concorde space. The leadership must be informed immediately. On the Dauntless, Cooper received the alien response. "Captain, they've acknowledged our message. It's brief but seems to indicate they understand. However, they're continuing to withdraw." Miller nodded. "Let them go. We've made our point. They know we have the capability to fight if necessary, but the desire to communicate peacefully." "What do you think their leaders will make of us, sir?" asked Wright. "That depends on what these scouts report," Miller replied. "But I suspect they'll approach future contact with caution." Days later, in the central chambers of the Galactic Concorde, Zalek presented his findings to the gathered representatives of 17 alien species. "Based on our scans and observations," he concluded, "we classify humans as a paradox species. They are technologically young but militarily advanced. They evolved on a death world that should have destroyed them, yet they thrived. They have a history filled with continuous warfare, yet they seek peaceful contact." "What is your recommendation?" asked the Concorde High Council leader. "Approach with extreme caution," Zalek replied. "These humans have the capacity to become either our greatest allies or our most dangerous enemies. They possess a quality we have not seen before. They call it fighting spirit. That makes them uniquely resilient and determined." "And potentially uniquely dangerous," added another council member. "Yes," Zalek agreed. "But there is something else. Despite their warrior nature, they showed restraint. They could have attacked when we scanned their most sensitive systems. They could have pursued when we fled. They did neither. They demonstrated their power, then offered peace. That suggests wisdom alongside their strength. As the Council debated how to approach this new species, the U.S. Dauntless continued its mission of exploration, its crew unaware that they had just changed how an entire galactic civilization viewed the universe and humanity's place within it.